Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for attending. Just before we start, I just want to say a few things about myself. Um, this is the first time I'm hosting a Zoom session, especially for people who stutter, etc. And and recently, I've been looking at the source of my own stutter. Um, and I'm trying to observe triggers, what triggers me to block and what triggers me to feel tense. And the anticipation of hosting a Zoom session for people who start with experts on as well was a big trigger. And I've been feeling this anxiety the whole day, so I'll admit it. Um, and I think if I'm going to block on speech, this will be probably the time I will. and I've tried to sit with my feelings and try and accept what's happening. And I was speaking to Paul earlier. I've left my headphones in the office, and I've been using headphones as a crutch because they keep my ears warm and keep me safe. But I feel very exposed. I've got this lamp here, just to just to give myself a better reflection. Yeah, so we all have triggers, and part of the reason why I wanted this session with experts that I know and I respect and admire and love is so that all other PWS can have a chance to learn from everyone and find out what's best for them. Um, Thank you for our distinguished guests who are going to speak. I am very grateful that you've decided to accept my invitation as 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 you could have been elsewhere, but you're here. So thank you very much. We will try um, not to keep you for too long. I'm trying to keep the session for an hour. Um, the initial plan was to have 5 panelists. However, then we had a 6th one, so we decided to have 3 on the Monday and then 3 on the Wednesday, and I hope that's okay. Um, I'm going to get right to it and introduce the panelists first. So this is the plan. I'm going to introduce, just give the names of panelists, then introduce one panelist first. Then that panelist will speak for 10 minutes. Then introduce the next panelist. That panelist will speak for 10 minutes. And then the third panelist for 10. And then maybe have questions and an organic discussion. I'm hoping to address 2 questions. If you have a pre-prepared talk, that's okay as well. But the questions I would like us to work together on is, how do you see stuttering and how do you see treatment of stuttering? So if you can keep this in mind. Um, Panelists, I'm thinking I'm going to introduce them in alphabetical order. So there's no important, I mean, no panelist is more important than the other in my eyes. I think you're all equally amazing. So the panelists tonight are Barbara Dahm, um, Andrey, Denisenko, and William Parry. So in order of alphabetical, I think Barbara Dahm will be first. Um, if I may give a very quick introduction, which Barbara has sent to me. So Barbara Dahm, CCC, SLP, Director of Communication Therapy Institute, has over 40 years of clinical experience and is a board certified specialist in stuttering, cluttering, and fluency disorders. She developed the speech processing approach and presents workshops and seminars on this unique perspective of stuttering. Barbara is the author of Dynamic Stuttering Therapy. Without any further ado, if I can hand this over uh, to Barbara to continue. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, well, thank you for having us. It's really wonderful that you gave us this opportunity to talk about stuttering, and I hope that people will continue to learn a lot. So nice to see all of you here. My perspective of stuttering, what is it and how to treat it? My perspective is not from looking at the speech at all. I guess I'll tell you what it isn't first, and then I'll tell you what it is. Most people think it's a difficulty in saying words, and that's not at all what stuttering is, although it seems that way. And that's how there's so many things that seem a certain way with stuttering, but if we dig deeper, it's not really what it seems. So if a person were having a problem saying words, they would have a problem saying words when they were singing, or different when they're talking alone. So it's not a problem of saying words. It's not even a problem of the speech. It's a problem of the system that is producing the speech. And this system is dynamic. There are many elements to the system, and for it to work effectively, it has to work the way it's meant to work, and that's automatically. So for people who stutter, the system isn't working in exactly the way it is meant to work. And this could be for many reasons. Let me name the basic aspects of the system. They are, first of all, the way we develop our language. That's one part of it. Another part of it is how we process speech, the motor program. So we have in the motor program, we have phonation, which is the production of the voice, and articulation. And then we also have a feedback system. Now, all of these systems are meant to work together, coordinate together, but they can only coordinate when they're automatic. And so in stuttering, one of the big problems is that there is too much attention put on how to produce speech. And this attention inhibits the automatic programming of speech. If you're thinking about how to get words out, what the words are going to be, how am I going to say them, planning them, then you're interfering with the automatic system. Now, why does this happen? It could happen for many different reasons. We won't get into that today, but there could be certain weaknesses in the development of the way the brain develops speaking that could be the cause from being a child. And then as the person grows, sometimes these weaknesses right themselves, and sometimes the person becomes very overconscious of how to speak, or develops inadvertently different kinds of controls that interfere with the system. So I don't believe that people who stutter need to learn to control their speech in any way whatsoever. I think what they need to learn is to give up the control, to let the system work naturally. And in therapy, What I do with people is I help them to understand the speech production system as it's meant to be, so that they are developing their language in the way that normally fluent speakers develop their language, by concentrating on their ideas. Right now, I'm thinking of the ideas that I want to get across to you, and I'm not paying attention to the words specifically. When you start to pay attention to those words, that's when you get into problems that lead to blocks. And also, it affects the way the voice is produced, because when you're trying to get words out, you tend to use muscles of the mouth that have an effect on the vocal cords, and this ends up in a block. So people have to learn to use their voice naturally. I don't believe in techniques that are artificial. I think we have to see how nature is meant us to speak and use that. So people learn to produce a natural voice and to let their mouth articulate completely automatically. When I'm speaking to you now, I'm not thinking where my mouth is going to go or how I'm going to say this sound or that sound. And it all happens too fast. So this is a big part of it. And of course, there are feelings, beliefs, perspective, um, experiences, fears, many things that can affect how the system is working. So we have to deal with that, because in the end, people do develop habits of the way they're going to produce speech. And habits are not only in the program itself for producing speech, but they're also in what we believe and what we think and what we feel. So a habit might be the habit of fearing what you're going to say. And so we have to deal with this too. It's a total system, and we have to take it, maybe break it down in therapy to its different elements to learn how to do this, to learn how to produce a natural voice, to see what the difference is between automatic articulation, the movements of the mouth, and controlled, to understand what we're doing. And we have to do this within the realm of human nature. So that means also dealing with the subconscious mind. We can't leave any part of the system untouched. And in therapy, we work with developing new habits. We using talking to our subconscious mind, changing that, changing our belief system. But bottom line, if the linguistic and motor processing of speech is done naturally in the normal way, there will not be stuttering. There just will not be. The speech will just flow. I don't focus on fluency. There's no trying to be fluent. It's just understanding your system and letting go of the controls as best you're able to at any given moment. So there's no failure in therapy. People are trying to be fluent or trying to see how fluent they are, just learning to speak as naturally as possible, and to accept that they really have all the ability to speak in a natural way, and to see how they're interfering with it, how they can change it, what changes they can make. So that is basically, I think my 10 minutes are just about up. So I'll be happy though if afterwards anybody has any questions to answer them.
Okay, that was a really fast 10 minutes, which and it was a lot of information in 10 minutes. So thank you for that. I'm hoping to have questions at the end, but does anyone have a question for Barbara just uh, uh, just now?
If I can I ask real quick just to follow up? So Barbara, I love your unorthodox approach, I would say, compared probably to traditional therapy, I believe. So you said about letting go of the controls. Can you name maybe some of the ways how to actually, I understand maybe that's the whole like method and therapy you apply, but maybe some hints or some ideas, what are the ways how to let go of that control?
By actually doing things. For instance, I show people what they can do as far as thinking about words. That's control when you plan your words. So, in the very beginning of therapy, I have them just think to themselves. And I ask them to compare what they're doing, looking at a picture maybe, and just describing the picture silently, and have them become aware of the internal speech that they're developing. Now, is this the way they're doing it when they're speaking, or are they doing it in a different way? So they begin to discover and explore within themselves what's going on inside of me, and see, am I planning my words? And then they work at doing it the same way they do it when they're thinking to themselves. So we play around, we go back and forth. Is it the same? Is it different? Which way is more comfortable? Which way is more helpful? And there's no right or wrong, really. There's just what's easier for you, more comfortable for you. And that's one thing. There are other things too, which, we need a whole seminar to
Gotcha.
go into.
Thank you so much.
No, okay, so just trying to unmute. Okay, I think that takes us nicely to Andrey Denisenko, our next speaker. Um, just to give a bit of background, Andrey Denisenko is the founder of the Free from Stutter, Free from Stutter, excuse me, project. And in saying that, you can have your 10 minutes now. And just remind that two questions are: how do you see stuttering, and how do you see treatment?
Thank you so much, Ahsan. Thanks, everyone. It's so great to be in this company. Maybe I'll share real quickly my humble thoughts. I'm not a speech therapist. I'm a person who stutters, so this is more a view from the inside, probably. I've been helping people who stutter for quite some time. Let's call it coaching. But I see, again, the major principles that apply both to how stuttering works and how transformation happens to what I call freedom from stuttering. And for me, freedom from stuttering is not stuttering or not stuttering less, but rather how a person feels at the moment of speaking interaction. And simply put, when a person enjoys the interaction, enjoys the act of speaking, when a person is truly present to the interaction. So this is the sign of therapists will say probably health. I call it freedom from stuttering, how we feel at that moment. And actually, I have a slide. Maybe I can put it on the screen just so that it would be.
Yes, absolutely fine. Yeah.
So
what's the best way to do that? If you're the
it
host,
says that
make me host.
host disable
Yeah.
my screen
Well,
sharing. So if it's possible to turn.
I'll make you host as well. If I make you
Uh-huh.
host and then later on make me host so I can record. So okay, you're the host now.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So give me a sec. I'll just put it on the screen and share my screen. So can you see my screen actually?
Yeah.
You can.
Yes.
Okay. So real quick, how I see stuttering, again, not very scientific a view, but very kind of simplifying. So probably we wouldn't argue about neurological ground. So this is some discoordination that probably we have. And Barbara talked about automatic speech production. I agree with that. Yet probably there is a difference between automatic, and default, which might have some discrepancies, I would say. And also, I would distinguish natural to this default. So I would probably argue that natural is not necessarily default. This is a big topic, but my point is that by default, we have people who stutter have insecurity in the speaking structure. And that insecurity leads to speech impediments. Speech impediments lead to a bit of helplessness. And here we have certain feedback. And that's the starting point of this cycle where we have a bit of a panic reaction, and it's very automated reaction. It's like touching a hot pan. You cannot do anything. Like your hand, you would take away your hand from the hot pan. It's very automated. So that's, and Peter probably would talk more about high sensitive people, and maybe this is our thing that we are overreacting, how Barbara maybe said. So, but in the nutshell, we develop a certain reaction to it, which creates stuttering anxiety and tension, which in turn brings more insecurity and gets speech impediments to new levels. It becomes a totally new speech impediments, not lack of coordination, but rather I call it refusal or withdrawal, where some part of the brain literally wants to withdraw, refuses actually to speak, to interact. And I like to bring an analogy with a stubborn kid where you say consciously to yourself, like, go speak. Maybe we can say, I enjoy it, I want to be here, but some part of the brain wants to withdraw. Because the easiest way to not stutter is simply not speak, right? So automatically, to escape stuttering, the easiest way is to escape interaction. So this escaping mode, that is kind of the core piece of stuttering that we want to take away. And I circled in red the areas that are pretty much invisible that I believe we can work on. I don't like the word treatment, quite honestly, because treatment is something that, like, again, you go to the doctor, it prescribes you a pill, you take, and the pain goes away. Here, the speaking and how you feel, it's your, well, let's call it skill that we can develop, actually. Again, it can be default, it can be the way it is, but there is something to work on. In particular, to bring security to the speaking structure. And I'm using the hand technique, which is not quite a technique because there is nothing artificial about bringing relaxation, feeling the stresses, feeling like how speaking can be expressive and everything. But it's the training speech, so it's not default. I see it as restoring the natural structure of our speaking. Yet again, it's different. And in this, we work with acceptance, with identity, with feeling that there is nothing to be ashamed of, not only about stuttering, but also about working on your speaking, bringing that security into speaking. So when we work on the security, when we work on this helplessness, remove this panic reaction, then we can remove this refusal. And yeah, simply feel, again, present and excitement about the interaction and about being present in the interaction. So this is my view on it. Again, maybe simplified, not very scientific, but from the inside as a person who stutters.
Okay, that's just under 10 minutes, so 8 minutes 30. That was very, very interesting. Just my own observations. Sometimes I feel that my thought process is in free fall. I can't articulate. I cannot structure sentences. So rather than focusing on words, you're looking at the entire structure. And is that a fair description of what you said?
Maybe if you don't mind, maybe I'll share one more slide.
Sure.
Sorry,
Of course.
about
Again.
what is it?
No problem.
About this new cycle that ideally
right. You're the host again.
Share screen. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So when we bring security to the speaking structure, so not working with this, not working with the speech impediments, but rather with the structure as such that leads to speech impediments, and also not working with the probably I should go back to my previous slide. Okay, but anyways, so not working with anxiety as such, but rather with this panic reaction and desire to hide stuttering, escape stuttering. So on those things that lead to anxiety and tension. So by removing those grounds of the insecurity in the speaking structure, in the physical kind of part, and removing that panic reaction, being open, active, positive, like feeling that there is no, again, that's why, again, disclosure is the basic thing I preach about, where we simply expose and open up in a positive way and see that there is no shame, both in stuttering and in working on our speech, because that can be a separate shame thing. So when the structure is secure and I'm not ashamed of being different using the training speech, then it creates a new cycle where there's no panic reaction. If I have a glitch, there is no worries. Like, and it's similar to regular people. They have glitches, they have speech impediments, but they never bother. They don't notice them. So that's probably the cycle that I would look into developing.
Okay, that was very interesting. Okay, if no one has a question, we'll get a chance for questions at the end, but let's move on to final speaker, if that's okay. William Parry. So if I can just give you a quick intro of William Parry, is a licensed speech language pathologist who previously overcame his own stuttering to become a successful trial lawyer. He received his law degree from the University of Pennsylvania Law School, where he was an editor of the Law Review. He earned his master's degree in speech, language, and hearing science from Temple University. He is certified by the American Speech Language Hearing Association and is licensed in Pennsylvania and more than a dozen other states. For the past dozen years, he has provided Valsalva stuttering therapy by video conferencing where permitted by law. After struggling most of his life with severe stuttering, Parry became frustrated with existing theories and therapies, which had not helped him to either understand or control his stuttering. Consequently, he began his own research and experimentation, which resulted in his Valsalva hypothesis, published in the Journal of Fluency Disorders in December 1985, and a new therapeutic approach. This dramatically improved his fluency, which opened up his legal career. Parry founded the Philadelphia area chapter of the National Stuttering Association in 1985 and led its support group meetings for 17 years. He served for 6 years on the board of directors of the National Stuttering Association and as chair of its advocacy committee. He has given workshops and presentations on the Valsalva hypothesis at national conferences of the NSA in the United States, the British Stammering Association, and the International Stuttering Association. With that intro, I'm going to hand over to Bill.
Okay. Okay, the first thing is with regard to stuttering. The psychological aspects, I think, is important. That's going to be one of the prongs of my therapy. However, since people have talked about the psychological aspects of it, I'm going to go directly to the neurological and the physiological aspects, which I also deal with directly. The first thing is I accept the possibility that people that stutter may have a neurological deficiency, as revealed by brain scans and various other neurological tests. However, even if we have a neurological deficiency, it does not compel us to block and stutter. All we would really need to do is to slow down. And also the fact that people that stutter, almost everyone that stutters, can be fluent at least some of the time. And there are people who are fluent 90% of the time. Can you hear me? Yeah. But people could be fluent 90% of the time. However, in certain situations, usually the most important situations, like introducing yourself, ordering food in a restaurant, having to say a word that is really the only one you can say that makes a professional sense. For example, if you were a doctor, a surgeon and you were doing surgery and you wanted to ask for a scalpel, but you couldn't say scalpel, there's no reasonable substitute that would not make you look stupid. So for those situations, they have a block. It's like the upcoming word is obstructed as if by a brick wall. It just feels you can't get the word out. You're stuck. You're helpless. And then you start to try to force the word out. And after forcing a little bit, maybe then the word will come out. And then you will feel that, first of all, saying the word was difficult and force helping you get the word out. And that reinforces this behavior and it becomes ingrained because you're doing it over and over and over again. All right, so what I believe is we may have a neurological deficiency, but that doesn't make us block, but it may make our speech processing more susceptible to interference. And I think the interference has three prongs. There's a psychological aspect, the neurological aspect, and the physiological aspect, and they all work together. So the purpose of the therapy is not to control one's speech, because I think we can speak perfectly well. It's to control the factors that interfere with speech. The starting point, I think, would be in a part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is like our friend. It's like our bodyguard who protects us from a potential danger. The potential danger used to be mainly physical danger. For example, for hundreds of thousands of years, human beings lived in the wild as hunter-gatherers. Can you still see me? Oh, okay. Hundreds of thousands of years as hunter-gatherers, and they would be attacked by big animals like saber-toothed tigers, etc., and rival tribes. So we had to have a basis for reacting immediately to potential danger. And that would be the stress hormones, which would trigger the fight, flight, freeze response. It's something we share with the animals. And here's an example. Let's say that there is a prehistoric man who's walking across the plains of Africa, and suddenly he sees a lion. Now, if the lion were to attack, he'd be in grave danger. So his amygdala immediately responds with the fight, flight, freeze response. Okay, the fight response would be, it gets him ready to fight harder. However, he can't very well fight the lion if it attacked. The flight response helps us run faster to get away, but he wouldn't really be able to outrun the lion if the lion attacked. So the third possibility is the freeze response. In other words, you become motionless, so the lion would be less likely to notice you. But it's also important that the lion doesn't hear you. So the freeze response also freezes vocalization. Now, he could still whisper. If he had a friend, he could probably whisper and say, "Shh, there's a lion over there." Okay, so whispering wouldn't be impaired because the lion couldn't hear that. And interestingly enough, people that stutter usually can whisper much more easily than when they talk out loud. All right. So he freezes, he's silent, he's holding his breath, and he then gets an effort impulse from the fight response. So if the lion did attack him, he would be more ready to fight the lion. And he does this by doing what's called a Valsalva maneuver. He builds up air pressure in the lungs. He squeezes his abdominal muscles in order to push the diaphragm up into the chest cavity. He compresses his rib cage. And so he's building up air pressure in order to stiffen the trunk of his body so his arms have a stable base on which to fight. but he's got to keep the air in his lungs under pressure. And that is done by closing the larynx in order to seal it off so the air will not escape. And the more he squeezes, the tighter the larynx shuts in order to resist the air pressure. Okay, so that's the basic thing that happens in the usual Valsalva maneuver. However, the amygdala now helps us in social situations and non-physical dangerous situations. I want to talk specifically about speaking situations. Let's say that you have to go to a job interview and you want to make, your intention is to make a good impression by not stuttering, because you believe that stuttering is going to really completely turn the person off, make a bad impression. So you want to make a good impression by not stuttering. So your amygdala acts in accordance with your intentions. And the intention to make a good impression activates the amygdala. The amygdala wants to protect you from an upcoming word that is associated with stuttering. And so it treats that word as if it was an enemy. And it initiates this fight, flight, freeze response. And it happens immediately, even before you have a chance to think about it. It's immediate. All right, so the first thing it does is it suppresses the voice. It suppresses the motor program for voicing the vowel sound. Why the vowel sound? The vowel sound is the loudest part of any word. If it's a multi-syllable word, the key vowel would be the vowel sound of the stressed syllable. So it suppresses the motor program for voicing the vowel sound. And without the vowel sound, you're not able to say the word. So it feels like the word is now blocked as if by a brick wall. Substituted for the phonation of the vowel sound is an effort impulse to do a Valsalva maneuver. And now we feel that we're trying to squeeze out the word that's blocked somewhere down here. But the more we squeeze, the tighter the larynx is going to shut in order to resist the air pressure. But it's not just the larynx. It could be the mouth. So let's say, for example, there's a man who wants to go to a restaurant to order a pizza. He stutters on P words. He's afraid of that he'll make a bad impression. So he practices all alone, pizza, pizza, pizza. And he can say it perfectly well. But his amygdala is registering the fact that this word is invested with great emotional importance. So he goes to the restaurant. The waiter says, "What'll you have?" And instead of saying pizza, he's blocked. He can't say the E, without which he's not able to say pizza. However, he presses with his lips in the P position, which blocks the air. And the more he tries to force out the word pizza, the tighter his lips close. Now, he could say hamburger, and the following day, if he wanted a hamburger, he wouldn't be able to say hamburger, but he could say pizza. But pizza is the word that's invested with emotional importance. And so the more he forces, because the Valsalva mechanism is all of the muscles and parts of the Valsalva mechanism are neurologically coordinated. The more he forces, the tighter the closure is. For consonants that do not completely block the air, you get a prolongation because you're trying to block the air instinctively in order to try to force the word out by doing a Valsalva maneuver. But that doesn't work because when you're blocking the airflow doesn't go through the larynx and vibrate the vocal folds. So you don't get phonation. You're forcing and forcing. Now, after forcing for a while, you may discharge the effort impulse, and then the word will come out. And after the word comes out, well, then you think that that forcing helped to get the word out. But let's say that it doesn't come out. And the more he forces, the more anxious he gets, and the more stress hormones are released, and the greater the reaction here. So let's say what he does is he picks up the menu and he points to pizza on the menu. And then the waiter says, "Oh, you want a pizza?" And all of a sudden the spell is broken. And now he can say, "Yeah, I'll have a pizza, pizza, pizza." He can say pizza all he wants. Why? Because the word pizza has now been divested of all of its emotional importance once the waiter says pizza. So now the word is worthless. It's completely superfluous because the waiter already knows. All right. So that's the basic idea.
Bill, I do apologize for interrupting. I know you're on a flow. I think that's you over 10 minutes. Would you like another 5 minutes? Would you like another 5 minutes?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about the treatment since I hadn't spoken about the treatment yet. So what the treatment involves is strengthening the motor program, or voicing vowel sounds. We have exercises with regard. A special technique to discharge the effort impulse that does not interfere with speech. Relaxing the Valsalva mechanism so it doesn't build up air pressure, so you're able to voice the words. And also changing your beliefs and intentions in speaking. Okay, for example, rather than trying to make a good impression of the man going to the restaurant, his sole purpose was to get a pizza. So he'd be thinking about a pizza, whether he wants the pepperoni pizza, mushroom pizza, whatever it is, rather than trying to make a good impression. Okay, so this is something that I do. The standard program right now is 7 hours. It's 6 sessions, so it's over like 6 weeks. And it's been very effective. I've been doing this for more than 12 years. Over the past few years, I've really boiled it down to something that is extremely effective, that can have good results within 7 hours. You can go longer if you want. But this is something that I'm very enthusiastic about. Okay.
Okay, that was very interesting. Does anyone have a specific question for Bill? So the plan is any question for Bill just now, and then we'll have an open question and answer thing. Does anyone have a question for Bill?
I would love to ask a question, please. Hi, Bill.
Hi.
I've been a fan of your work for a long time. I'm currently on a program, acceptance commitment therapy, and a big component of the program is mindfulness. So if we think of mindfulness as paying attention to the present moment in a non-judgmental way, and that's really helped me to, a lot of the theories that you're all talking about has really allowed me to understand without attaching myself to the fears. So does mindfulness play an aspect in your program?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I have also taken courses in acceptance commitment. Oh my God, I keep forgetting. ACT. Okay.
Yeah, ACT,
Acceptance, commitment. What's the
Therapy.
T stand for? I'm blocking on it. Therapy.
Therapy, yeah.
Okay, that's easy. Yes. And also cognitive behavior therapy. I've had courses on mindfulness. All of these things come into the psychological aspects of this. Now, one of the biggest hangups is that people feel this urge to exert effort, which is generated by the amygdala. And since the amygdala is supposed to save your life, when they get these instructions from the amygdala, you got to force, it feels like a matter of life and death. Now that reaction becomes more likely when you're thinking about, that you're trying to be fluent. It's like the amygdala, if it could talk, would probably say, "Oh, you want to be fluent? I can help you with that." And then and then it triggers the stress hormones, and you're right into this defensive reaction. So all of this is extremely important with regard to decreasing the reactivity of the amygdala in speaking situations. So there's a lot we can talk about that. However, that would go on well over an hour. But there's many examples I can have of how just thinking about trying to be fluent. Like, for example, there was a bunch of people that I had. They were reading. Now, they had been through the therapy. They were reading and all of that very smoothly and very smoothly. And then all of a sudden, bang, they started to block. And I said, stop. I bet I know what you were just thinking. You were thinking, wow, I'm fluent. I wonder how long I can keep this up. And they all said, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So the minute they started to think about being fluent, it activated the amygdala, and this whole reaction started again. So that is one of the big hangups that we have to get people through. So this might involve the mindfulness. It could be ACT. It could be cognitive behavior therapy. There's also something else I use. It's called transactional analysis. And so there's a lot of different things. It's a very holistic approach, but we also have to know how to control the neurological and the physiological reactions, because that's a very big part of it.
Thanks, Bill.
I was just sorry, Tim, if you continue, please continue. On you go. Sorry.
I just said thanks, Bill.
Okay. No, you know what you just said about the acceptance. If you try and be fluent, I always feel that if I'm hiding the fact that I'm a person who stutters, I will definitely block. But if the other person knows that I stutter, I think that it goes back to something which was mentioned in the presentation by Andrey. He says that a big part of his therapy is disclosure, and I think that helps a lot in the acceptance, and which helps.
Yeah, with regard to disclosure, can I just disclosure, there's a special kind of disclosure which I recommend. It's redefining stuttering, because right now the experts say, oh, stuttering is a mystery with no known cause or cure and all of that stuff. It might be neurological. And so you could say, I have a stutter, it's all neurologically no big deal, but people still don't know what stuttering is. And so they project upon the person who stutters those situations where they themselves have been disfluent. And it could be, I'm disfluent sometimes when I'm nervous. So this guy is crazy nervous. Or when I don't know the answer. So this guy must be stupid. Or when I'm trying to hide something. So maybe this guy's dishonest. All of these things have stigma attached. And then the person that stutters internalizes the stigma. And that makes everything worse. So I say people have to know what it is. If somebody asks you, why do you talk that way? I would say, I have a voice problem. In fact, I call it selective vowel aphonia. I have a voice problem. Sometimes my larynx isn't ready to voice the vowel sound of a word. When that happens, I have to stop and get my larynx ready to voice the vowel sound. And so here is a very simple and a very accurate explanation that people can visualize and understand, and it doesn't have any stigma attached. If you had laryngitis, there's no stigma attached to this. So you're explaining in very simple terms, but very accurate terms, what is going on and what you can do about it and what you can believe yourself. This is not something, this horrible thing happening to me that I can't control and feel helpless and defective. It's like, I don't have the vowel sound. I don't have the motor program for the vowel sound. You have the motor program for all the rest of the word, but not the vowel sound, without which you can't say the word. So that sets you up. You can tell people that this is my problem. Every once in a while, I'll have to get my larynx ready to to voice the vowel sound. And I think that is a very, helpful way to remove the stigma.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. We have questions. So what we'll do, in fact, if everyone wants to ask a question, raise their hand, and then when I call your name, just say this is a question for name of the panelist. Next, can I ask Tino to ask a question, please?
Yes, please. Thank you for the time, and just wanted to thank you to all the speakers. It's really great to hear this things from the person that had the same problem and now have solved it or are on a high degree of solving it. My question is maybe for all of three of the speakers. So how you see the problems and how the person need to work on the stuttering? Is it or maybe how you personally see when the person is free of stuttering? Is it a process for the lifetime, or is it some of the moments or the feelings inside you feel so for the most of the days, so you can in the end say that you overcome the problem?
Okay, I think we'll answer the question alphabetically again. Can I ask Barbara to answer first, please?
You are
You're
muted, Barbara.
Muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, so first of all, we don't work on the stuttering. We just work on the system. So there's no trying to be fluent. And you can not stutter and still your system is not functioning in a natural way. And I agree with Andrey when he said there's a difference between the default way that a person might be using and what is natural. What I call natural is the way that 99% of the population produces speech. Now, this might not be the default for 1% of the population, for people who stutter. And so what we want to do is help them to see how they are differing in the way that they are producing speech and to start using it. And success can be in many levels. Maybe it's just understanding what differences you're using than other people and accept that and say, that's okay, but at least you understand what's going on inside of you so you don't feel totally helpless. You know that you can make changes if you want to make changes. And I have to say that the way I show people the natural process and when they're doing it, people are just, the speech just flows. I don't like to say the word fluent, but they just, not only does their speech flow, but their thoughts flow because you're no longer trying to control how you're speaking. So you might want just to have therapy to the point where you understand your system and you can do it on your own. It takes a while for it to become the default. And I agree with William and Andrey and probably a lot of other therapists that we do all of the reactions, the fear of speaking, this trying to get the words out is habitual. And maybe there is a weakness someplace in the system, as William says, that, but we don't have to do the same thing all of the time. And so it's showing people how to do it differently. And therapy, I don't believe should be an ongoing thing for years and years. If it's necessary to have a whole year of therapy, then you're missing something. It should be learning, understanding, seeing your capabilities, what you can do, how you can help yourself, and beginning to use it gradually in different situations in your life.
Okay, excellent answer. Excellent answer, Barbara. Sorry. Could I ask Andrey to answer the same question, please?
Sure. So I see it as a process, and maybe two like big milestones that I would distinguish is the first, probably I would call it a public speaking stage, where it's kind of, with my students, we learn how speaking can be the source of relaxation, as I think it's very close to what William said, but we just align it with pressing fingers on the thigh. So probably very, in the nutshell, close idea. But the first stage is to feel that you can speak on your terms. So when you have the mic and you can relax, you can feel it's effortless, it's expressive, you're connected with the environment, with the audience. The next stage is interaction stage, where we go for recordings, asking directions, making phone calls, approaching strangers. And the big thing to feel, the same way when someone is telling you, what do you want? And you want to say pizza, as said, right? So I take the mic and I decide how I speak, when I speak. So it's really important to feel that you decide, because in the interaction, there is a lot of pressure still to unconsciously we feel we need to follow like the other person or the other people. So for me, it feels like the next stage. And I want to mention disclosure as well. I agree with William that there is a million ways how to disclose. What I mean by disclosure is not quite disclosing stuttering, yet we disclose stuttering as well, but rather we give ourselves permission to speak on our terms using the training speech that we apply. So that's a little bit maybe different disclosure. So like I might speak a little slower, and that don't be surprised, for example. So for me, it is a process, yet I see like the switching point when there is no reaction. I agree with William that this reaction is to speaking, to a glitch. That's the like sign of, again, stuttering, or more of a freedom from stuttering when there is no reaction to it. That's how I see it.
Okay, that was a very very insightful answer. Thank you, Andrey. And finally, Bill, could I ask you to have a bash at this?
Okay. I think the important thing is, first of all, people have to understand what the speech process is and how easy and effortless it is physically. Just about all of the effort, the physical effort, happens when you inhale, because you're compressed, you're contracting the diaphragm, you're lifting your rib cage, and it expands the chest cavity, and the air comes in, and now you have all that air. All the rest of it is relaxing those muscles which you use to inhale. Okay, so you relax the diaphragm. It goes back into its relaxed dome shape. The rib cage comes down. the air just naturally flows out through the larynx. You have your vocal folds. The air vibrates the vocal folds. You don't have to use any effort at all. You don't have to squeeze. Just relax everything and the air comes out. It comes up to the mouth. Now, at this point, this is a melodic vibrating column of air. You have a little muscle down here that does the pitch. It's called the cricothyroid muscle. Okay, it comes into your mouth. Your mouth shapes the vowel sounds, and that's determined by the position of your lips and tongue. Ah, ah, e, oo. And the consonants are just momentary turbulences made by the lips and tongue. And that is speaking. All you've got to do is make vibrations in the air that are going to go through the air into your listener's ear. And if the listener knows your language, his brain will automatically decode the vibration into words and meaning. And so that's how you do it. When you treat the words as if they're physical objects that you have to force out, the air's not flowing, you're not phonating, you're not saying anything. It feels like you're really trying hard because you're reacting to the fight, flight, freeze response, but you're not talking. Words are continuous melody and movement. So one of the things we start out with is to get used to what the Valsalva maneuver is and how you can relax the Valsalva mechanism, how you can discharge the effort impulse, and then how you make the vowel sounds on a relaxed outflowing air through the shape of your mouth. And then after that, we get into the words and how we don't try to force on the consonants, because some people have this great overwhelming urge to force. So we have to go through that by focusing on voicing the vowel sounds while relaxing the Valsalva mechanism. We have to know what happens when we get this effort impulse from the amygdala and how to recover from that, which I call the word recovery response. Now, the amygdala is going to react for quite a while. And so we have to accept the fact that we're going to feel these blocks, but we have to know how to recover from these blocks and how to do it in a nice, easy, natural way and not feel bad about anything. Just accept it. I know what's happening. I got the vowel sound. I'm relaxing the Valsalva mechanism and discharging the effort impulse. And then the word comes out. And after they know how to do this, when they go into speaking situations, they feel more self-confident, because if they feel a block, which they very well might, they know how to deal with it. So it gets to the point where you feel the block, bump, and you discharge the block immediately. And it has very little disruption of speech, maybe it might be momentary. However, nothing that's really going to disrupt the flow of communication.
Well, that was a very insightful answer as well. And I think we'll bring the session to a close now, if that's okay. Because we're over an hour, so, and I'm sure everyone has things to do. But thank you for everyone for attending, audience, panel. I've learned so much from all three speakers. I've got so many questions, but there isn't enough time, and I know from the speakers that we haven't even scratched the surface of what you actually know. So thank you very much, and I hope that you will return again in the future for another session. And next session is this coming Wednesday, 7 p.m. UK time, and a link will be sent to audience, and the speakers will be Olga Bednarski, Paul Brocklehurst and Peter Lowe. Peter Lowe and Paul are in the audience just now. So if the speakers for this session wish to come on Wednesday, just to watch and listen, that would be appreciated. We're also going to have another session on Saturday with other speakers, and they will be announced in due course. Yeah, this was really interesting. So much content, so much knowledge, so much experience, and I feel enriched. I actually feel enriched. Yeah, and I think we get messages from audience members thanking the speakers. Just really quickly, if anyone wants to contact any speaker, what is the best way to contact the speakers? By email? Email, I think.
Yeah, email from me.
Yeah.
Email is
that's-
the best.
Yeah.
Or WhatsApp.
Or WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
Okay. And okay, what I'll do is I will put the panel's email into our WhatsApp group. We've got a WhatsApp group of maybe 130 people, I think. So we'll put your emails in there, and I would like to share this recording with our members. So yeah, unless anyone has any other comments, I think we can finish up.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Barbara.
That's okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
Oksana, for
Bye.
setting us
Thank
up.
you.
Thanks everyone for participating. It's beautiful and awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.